I've got a confession. I have a guilty pleasure, and no, it's not thick waifu mommies, it's idle games. Look, I'm not always playing one. Most recently I played Go-Go Muffin, which was definitely a fun, high-quality idle, but like many of its genre, got a bit stale after a few months. Although probably not an exception, I am surprised at the quality and fun I've had with today's game, Lost Sword. From what I've been able to garner, this game is published by We Made Connect, mostly a Korean publisher. Only notable titles I saw were some Fliff spin-off and a God of High School idle game, and developed by CodeCat, which I could find basically zero information besides that they also made Swordmaster Story, which might be somehow loosely tied to Lost Sword. Not sure, I wasn't the biggest fan of Swordmaster Story. First, let's go over the story, which kinda surprised me that it's not a complete throwaway. The intro is even voice acted in English. Unfortunately, that and combat voices are pretty much it. No more English voice acting in the story, which is a shame. Basically, the premise is the protagonist is isekai'd into a fantasy world trying to get back home by helping out this world that is pretty much at war. You'll travel around kingdom to kingdom convincing them to join your alliance. Oh, and everybody's also a goofy idiot for the most part, although it is still able to take itself seriously at different points, but it's mostly a silly game. My in-game guild leader said it was comparable to Konosuba, and I have to agree. Unfortunately, the story is pretty slow-paced as you have to burn through a bunch of idle stages, and it'll be even slower moving as you get deeper into the story as progression will slow significantly. On to gameplay, some people would say lack thereof. You build out a team of 5 units in 3 positions, front, middle, and back, where units prefer being in certain spots for a stat boost, but can be placed elsewhere if you run out of room in a position. Characters will have 2 passives, an active skill, and an ultimate, which plays out a pretty nice animated cutscene similar to Epic 7, which is also the only thing you can really interact with in combat. Straightforward stuff for these types of games. Most of the fun will just be progression and building out your teams. Now, looking at progression, this is really where the meat of every idle is, how fun or punishing it is to interact with the systems and progress your account. Which luckily, I gotta say, this is somewhat a refreshing game in the genre for me with how attainable upgrades are. Characters have a level that will probably rise infinitely as the game gets older. Those 4 skills I mentioned can all be leveled twice each, and then 2 skill levels will be given at 3 dupes and 5 dupes. On that note, every character can take a total of 8 dupes. After that, any more dupes are converted into a resource you'll use in different aspects of the game. At any point, 1 dupe you can choose to get a character's unique card, which is a piece of gear that can be slapped on anyone, but if a character has a universally bad one, it can just be skipped, and then a character would only need 7 dupes to max. 5 will go into standard stat buffs per character with those additional skill levels. After that, 2 more will allow you to awaken them, which is also just more stats. Of course, context matters. I really like this system over most other idols, which have nearly unattainable dupe systems with endless dupe dumping. I'm looking at you, Netmarble. The game so far has given out a really good amount of summons, 5-star summon tickets, and some selectors as well. Back onto characters, they have 4 gear slots, gear having fixed and some random stats that you'll farm and craft for. Also a little stat tree where you'll mostly utilize the summon resources for getting dupes of max characters of all rarities, which can be acquired in-game as well. And finally, specialties where you'll roll randomized stats of different rarities for each character, which is probably the most annoying progression system. You can lock stats you like and roll the rest at a higher cost, but the one nice thing of this system is if you roll good stats on a character, but it isn't good for them specifically, you can spend some gems to transfer them to a character that can utilize them. As far as stage progression goes, it's just a story mode currently with a normal, hard, and hell difficulty. Not sure where it ends at, but the newest update will extend it to chapter 53, so it's somewhere before that. For all the other modes, I'm just going to try and speedrun these real quick. Most of these will have limited daily runs and you can purchase more runs. So solo, boss raids, auto PvP, which is pretty brain dead. You can infinitely refresh your opponents. I just look for ones like half my level and you don't lose rank for your defense lineup losing. Labyrinth, a weekly roguelite mode, very bare bones, a tower with static rewards, and a rotating boss DPS check with random buffs for the week. Dungeon tab are basically more generic farm stages, the gear one being a timed one you'll just AFK in. A co-op boss, a guild war where you'll conquer various castles beating down the walls and fighting a boss. Then events, which are basically side stories where you'll farm as high as you can go, then just sweep your highest cleared stages. Last I can remember is the weekly dungeon in town where you can get some guaranteed gear drops. So a good amount of content, but once you start getting walled in store, you'll clear through all these modes fairly quickly, especially over the course of a week. The active time before you get walled in story is fairly long though, takes a while to get through the story. Now, an important aspect for every game is monetization, so looking at Lost Swords, I gotta say it's a bit weird. Most packs are purchasable with orange gems, which you buy with money. but there are no deals or discounts on these, so what ends up being the best deal is their monthly pass, which gives you the monthly login benefit as well as the amount of gems you'd buy straight up for the same amount. There are step-up packs which don't show the price tag for future steps, which is a bit annoying and scummy. A lot of pop-up packs specifically while you're clearing story, usually every chapter or so, as well as a lot of battle passes for different things like how far you clear in an event, and then skins for some characters where the prices range from pretty good to why is this so expensive. There's some free costumes as well though, and censored ones, which is neat. While we're on the topic, there's this gentleman mode which just removes characters from the lobby screen but nothing else. I assume this is supposed to be a censor setting, but it's the only thing I've seen it do, and I really hadn't noticed right away because I'm dumb, but this game is pretty horny for a game that isn't just porn, so if that's your thing, they've got plenty of it. Back on monetization though, I think it's pretty fair overall. Definitely pay to win though, as usually is the case for these games, but I'd still say the game overall is free to play friendly. Which brings us to the good old Gamba gachas. So we will be pulling characters and pets, both using different tickets, as well as rate up banners and standard banners, which also use different tickets. All of these can also be pulled with in-game gems at 100 gems a pull. Highest rarity across the board is a 3% rate, with the rate ups taking 2% of that. No soft pity from what I can see. Hard pity is at 120 pulls. And this hard pity doesn't reset even if you pull the rate up, which is fantastic for getting those much needed dupes. Pity does carry over to new banners as well, and all characters so far get added into the standard summon pool, so overall a pretty good system in my opinion. As well as a free daily pull on the standard character and pet banner each. And since I forgot about pets, I'll run through them quick. You can put 3 on a team, only the front uses the active skill. Everything else are just stat sticks, and these take 5 dupes for more stats. It makes sense for these idle games to be more generous with how these systems work, but with how low the cap dupes are compared to other games by a huge margin, this is really a breath of fresh air for the genre. So as the game isn't idle, this is going to be a pretty quick video. I don't have much else to go off of, but if you don't absolutely hate idle games, I think this one is definitely worth your time. I think the story is written and translated pretty well. Characters are all fun in their own way. Progression is very straightforward as well as attainable in my opinion compared to other games in the genre, and it's easy to build out a pretty diversified roster. I do have concerns for the game's future though. As the game is young, at least in the West, it's hard to say how they will continue to push monetization in the game outside of just pulls and packs with resources. I think new gear is a strong possibility, which I think would be pretty detrimental for free-to-play players, but then all comes with time. It'll be a wait-and-see situation, but for now this has been a fun time, and I strongly recommend the game for idle fans and the waifu crowd out there. Thanks everyone for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.